Okay, good morning, everyone. Thank you for joining today's second community conversation. This topic is Dublin Unified School District, and we are pleased to have with us the Superintendent of Public Education, Dr. Dave Marken. We will begin in a quick minute with Dr. Marken, but I first would like to say thank you for being here today. This is the second of three community conversation virtual town halls. The second one will be later this afternoon at 1 o'clock. Economic Development with Hazel Weatherford and with Inga Houston, the CEO of Dublin Chamber of Commerce. With that, I would like to say welcome to Dr. Marken and ask him to give a brief update on the COVID-19 situation with Dublin Unified School District. We know that you are going through tremendous change and want to say congratulations for handling that very well so far. But we know you continue to work very hard. You, your staff, your teachers, the entire school district. We know that we have a lot of parents on the line with questions. And I would like to also say, for those parents that have questions, you can type them in to the Zoom meeting here. They will be asked and answered after a brief discussion and presentation from Dr. Marken. So get your questions ready, type them in advance. And with that, again, introduce the Superintendent of Education for Dublin Unified School District, Dr. Dave Marken.
Thank you, Mayor Haubert. Really appreciate that, and appreciate you and City Manager Linda Smith and John and Chief Garrett Holmes putting this together for not only our healthcare workers and not only our business community, but also our school district. So thank you very much for doing that. Our board president, Dan Sherrier, was unable to be with me this morning. He had a work commitment, so I've asked our vice president, Megan Rouse, to join me, and I'm really glad she was able to step in. And I thought what we could do is I'd really like our vice president to make some opening comments, and then I'll follow up with some concluding comments, because I know we have a couple questions we know of for sure that we'd like to address. And there probably will be some more. So Megan, if you wouldn't mind, and then I will follow up after you.
Great, sounds good. Thank you very much. Thanks, Linda, Mayor Haubert, and everyone on the call for including us. I guess I would like to start with a shout out and a thank you to our amazing teachers and staff. The success that we've had so far is really due to how amazing they are. We have a strong relationship with our bargaining units with DTA and CSEA, and that has really made a lot of these difficult decisions workable because of our partnership. You know, it's interesting, we've asked of all of our teachers and staff we've asked them all to reimagine, to recreate, to connect and deliver in ways that they have not had to do before, and they have all risen to the occasion. And I believe that is because we share this common purpose of putting our students first. And I just really want to thank them, all our teachers and staff, for all that they have done for the district during this time. We have long focused on the mental health and well-being of our students and staff. We have elementary counselors at every elementary school. We have a strong counselor ratio at all of our secondary schools. And we have really been utilizing that during this time to make sure that we maintain a focus on the mental health and well-being of our students and our staff. At an individual level, a lot of teachers and staff have reached out to their students. At a site level, they have done that as well. And also our counselors have emailed and connected individually with students to check in with them, not just on their academic progress and situation, but also on their mental health and well-being, and making sure that we share the resources that we have available, as we know that this is a challenging time for everyone. I also want to thank our partners. You know, we have a lot of folks that help us each and every day. The City of Dublin, Dublin Partners in Education, EDCC, the Chamber of Commerce, Rotary, DSRSD, Zone 7. Just really want to thank all of our partners. They've been working with us. They've been working for the benefit of us and the benefit of our students as well. And before I turn it over to Dr. Marken, I do want to acknowledge and thank our superintendent, Dr. David Marken, for his leadership and phenomenal work during this difficult time. It is because of his heart, his expertise, and our collective faith in him that we are able to adapt and work together and move forward during this time. So thank you, Dave, and I'd like to turn it over now to our superintendent, Dr. Dave Marken.
Well, thank you very much, Megan. Appreciate that. And I obviously would echo the comments with respect to our partners, who are many, and we've had a great working relationship. Well, what a year this has been, and what a last few months this has been. Obviously, with the governor and with our healthcare leaders in our state and our nation, basically saying for the better good to not have school as we knew it. And so we rallied our troops, and we are doing to the best of our ability, doing some online learning and education for our kids. Just to let you know that we have issued 650 laptops. Over the last 3 or 4 weeks, we have 250 more that will be given out over the next week or so. So it'll push us over 900. We have served through our food service over 2,000 meals, breakfast and lunch at 2 locations, Fallon and Dublin High. So we have been required, as every school district has, to determine who are some essential workers. And those are sometimes difficult decisions to make to keep the school district moving ahead and doing what we need to do with respect to our food service and serving our students and getting technology into their hands so that they can have greater interaction with our teachers. And we really appreciate that. We've had our custodians back at work. They're rotating, they're using safety precautions. We're rotating people in our offices. We're having 2 or 3 come in, and then they work for a day, and then they're out and work remotely. And we're doing all of those things to maintain even more than what is kind of required for social distancing. It's been an interesting, and we've discussed that how this grew into tighter restrictions. We think what will obviously happen is, as it reverses, the restrictions will loosen up bit by bit. And for example, working with our childcare, we think one of the first things that will probably happen is the state or our county will start to say to some of our folks that are working from home, okay, the curve has flattened or is flattening. We think you can go back to work, but you need to come right home from work and be at home. I think that's kind of how this may roll out. Well, one of the things we've been talking with over the last several days is with EDCC, our childcare, that in order for them to go back to work, childcare has to start the day that restriction is loosened. So we've been working diligently with EDCC and putting those plans in place for the time that happens. And I think, we really think that's how this is all going to roll out. It's going to be kind of a step by step. So it's been quite an interesting project, and I know we have some questions. We are working, as Mayor Haubert said, very diligently. I just remember yesterday, actually, I got in my office, my little office here at home, at 7:30, and it was 2:45 when I actually left, and was in just nonstop with phone calls and WebEx and all sorts of things, trying to be prepared for this fast-growing school district that we were in. And you know, we will continue to grow, and so we'll continue to tackle these things as they come up. And I will say again, thanks certainly to the city. I know that the city manager, Linda Smith, and I probably talk every other day, and we just know each other's name, and and we touch base all the time, and it's really helpful. I know Mayor Haubert has called several times, so that's been a real plus for the school district and the city and our partners to have this great collaboration and partnership. So I don't know, Linda, if you want to start with some questions. I know a couple of them, or how would you like to proceed at this point?
Actually, so Dr. Marken, we're going to have a brief update from Linda and our police chief, Garrett Holmes. A few comments on our community and police services enforcement activities, and then we'll open it up to questions. But I want to say thank you for being on the call, and also I forgot to mention that Vice President Megan Rouse is on the call with us. So thank you for introducing her. Megan, thank you for your time being here. A great overview of the activities at Dublin Unified. And we'll go now to Ms. Smith and Police Chief Garrett Holmes. Linda? You're on mute, Linda.
Thank you, Mayor, and those on the call. Appreciate the opportunity to give you a brief update. I'm not going to spend any significant time on this, but I just wanted to make sure that the members of our community know that all of the city facilities, with the exception of Dublin Police Services, are closed. Dublin Police Services does have some limitations in terms of the number of persons who can enter the facility. If you have any business that you need to do with Dublin Police Services, it's best to give a call first over there to the front and make sure that you provide some social distancing between you and someone else who might be in the building. Just an update on how we're doing operationally here at the city. We have all of our full-time staff working remotely with few exceptions. Most of the City Hall building is closed to the public, but we are still here serving the community. Our mainline number, 925-833-6650, continues to be manned by our admin staff, who can then direct your calls to places where you need to get assistance. So continue to use that line to reach City Hall. We will answer your call. Things that we've been doing around here that continue to support our community, much like the way that the Dublin Unified School District is supporting their kids who may need meals. The City of Dublin is continuing its support by preparing meals on behalf of Open Heart Kitchen over at the Senior Center. So seniors in need of meal support can sign up and receive meals. Our information is available on our website to do that. And if you have any questions about signing up, please call the general information line at City Hall, and we will get you in touch with someone who can answer your questions with respect to that. We're also continuing to support the Meals on Wheels program so that seniors throughout our community and throughout the region can receive meals to their homes. So those are two things that we're working to ensure we maintain continuity on. This pandemic has really, as it has for the school district, really sort of shifted how we're going to be able to do business here at the city. So at this point in time, we have no city programming available for the public. And moving into the summer months, we're not sure what that programming may look like. So at this point, we're suspending all of our programming until we get better information from County Health about what controls we'll need to put into place in order to begin offering programs. We've been a great partner with the district with respect to our after-school programming and our preschool programming, some of which was conducted in conjunction with Dublin Elementary. And so we are, we're continuing to monitor that situation and being able to ramp up when those rules come down about what we can do. But there will be a lot of alterations to this year's summer programming for students in the community. And unfortunately, that means a lot less part-time jobs for a lot of our high school students in the community. We have, in lieu of having actual recreation programs available, we've adopted what we call a virtual recreation center. So you can visit the city's website or the WAVE website, and there will be information available to you. Some of our preschool teachers are reading books to the children, so you can log on and have a book read to your child. You can participate in a virtual Easter egg hunt if you have young kids. So we have a multitude of opportunities available for our families in the community to continue to feel engaged and while being at home. So we want to make sure people check out our website on the virtual rec center. Just in terms of our business operations, we are in what we have declared an emergency here in Dublin, much like every other community throughout the United States. We have option to open virtually our emergency operations center. And for those that are familiar, and most people aren't, there are various groups that do work within an emergency operations center. In the case of Dublin, we've authorized our command unit, our finance unit, our logistics unit, and our documentation and demobilization units to operate. And that means that we can track and we can serve as a point of contact for people in the community who might have access to resources, and those resources need to get deployed to places that need them. So if you do have any resources that you wish to donate, the place to call is City Hall, again, 925-833-6650, and we can direct those resources to the appropriate locations. The logistics unit is also working with the state and the county on something called the state's program called Operation Room Key, and that is to ensure that anybody who is considered a vulnerable COVID-19 population, whether they're a homeless individual or somebody who has tested positive or may have been documented that they've been exposed, that they have a place to go. So we're working with one of our hotels here in Dublin to stand that up. Second to that is the county has opportunities for people who are exposed and do need to be quarantined from members of their family. There's locations throughout the Alameda County to do that. Again, if you have questions about that, please call City Hall and we'll put you in touch with the right resources. We are also publicizing a request from the county and collecting information for any medical or healthcare workers who are willing to work shifts in alternate patient care locations throughout the county. And this would be part of what they call their surge planning efforts. We're not there yet, but they want to make sure that they have that list of people who are in those fields and can volunteer their time. And with that, I'm going to turn it over to Police Chief Garrett Holmes to give an update on what we've been doing relative to enforcement of the shelter-in-place order.
Good morning, everyone. I just want to start to thank everybody for all their cooperation and assistance through this difficult time. The initial public health order came out on March 16th, and then it was updated on March 31st, and it's in effect until May 3rd. We've seen a great amount of compliance from both our businesses and residents, and we're getting very few complaints from the residents as far as any problems that are out there in the community. We are implementing the same policies and guidelines that are under the order at the front counter of Dublin Police Services. So anyone who comes in, we're requiring one person in the lobby at a time, making sure that they're wearing a mask, have them come in. We have hand sanitizer available to them, and we have disposable pens that if they need to sign any documentation, they can sign it, and then they can take that pen with them so we don't get any cross-contamination. We're also doing a lot of things, at the police station to make sure that our workplace is very clean and sanitized for our employees, because a clean workplace is going to give us a healthy workforce so we can go out there and serve the community. With that, I think that's about all I have right now.
Chief, if you could, for the benefit of the folks on the call, if people do want to raise a concern either about social distancing or about what is considered an essential business, what number would you like them to call?
They can call our main desk number at 833-6670.
Great. Thank you.
Chief Holmes and Ms. Smith, thank you very much for that update. Actually, I would like to follow on with Chief Holmes. I would like to say earlier in the previous call, there was a question about uptick across the state, across the country, across perhaps even the Bay Area here in crimes against Asian Americans, Chinese Americans related to the COVID-19. I'm happy to hear that we have not seen that in Dublin. You could perhaps comment on that, but I want to be very clear that we, from the City Council, from the Office of the Mayor, all the way down through our police services team, do not tolerate hatred of any kind, do not tolerate discrimination or bigotry or bullying, and most assuredly not at this critical time. And I know that also goes for our partners at Dublin Unified. And so if you could at least reaffirm everyone that we will be on top of this and that we haven't had any problems yet and we don't anticipate have any, but we're prepared to take action if needed.
Absolutely, Mayor. We have seen a reduction in our calls for service, and I think that's just because everyone has been adhering to the shelter in place, which has been wonderful. We are seeing a significant reduction in traffic citations that we've issued. Most crime reports are a little bit lower than normal. We have a little uptick as far as domestics, with a lot of people being at home, being together, maybe a little bit too much together time. And so, tempers are kind of boiling a little bit. And we have no reported cases of any hate crimes, which is wonderful news. And, if we do get something like that, we will absolutely, thoroughly investigate that and send that over to the district attorney's office.
Thank you, Chief Holmes. I will now go to questions from the community. We have over 80 participants. And actually, what I'd like to do is just to follow up on some of the comments earlier and just say thank you for the wonderful overview, Dr. Marken and Vice President Rouse. Dublin Unified has gone above and beyond, and the teachers and the staff really doing a great job. I want to just say we know that you can't do it all alone, and we're here with you. The community is here to support you. If there are things that you need, please let us know. And some of those may be apparent now, but really over time as that may unfold. And when we do get back to normal, a big round of thank yous are owed to everyone that has chipped in. But the one question I have is around PPE. And earlier on our call, a public safety call, we talked about how our hospitals are well stocked. Is Dublin Unified well stocked with all of the things it needs from a PPE perspective? That's sort of one question I have. And then the other comment more is that I had a chance to visit the meal, not delivery, but the handing out of meals at Dublin High School. And I want to just commend that department within Dublin Unified and the leadership at Dublin Unified for making sure that program stays in place. And I want to note that you're not asking any questions. If somebody needs a meal, you're going to give it to them. The students that are on free and reduced lunch are getting a meal, but some may have slipped into that category as a result of the ensuing financial crisis that many families find themselves in. And you're doing a great job to just, everybody has what they need. And so thank you. But let's if you could address a couple of those points, and then we'll open it up to questions from the community, which will be moderated by Ms. Smith. Dr. Marken?
Great, thank you, Mayor Haubert. It's actually, I was just reflecting while we were talking this morning, as some of you know, not all of the people that are on the call, I spent 13 years in Dublin Unified, and Garrett Holmes, Mayor Haubert, Linda Smith go back to my first tenure in Dublin. So it's interesting how we've kind of, well, at least I've circled back. You folks have remained, but I really appreciate that and really appreciate your support. One of the other things I would like to say before we go into the gloves and the masks and those sorts of things are, one of the things we've made a decision several weeks ago, and that is to reach out to our community every single day. So we send out a message at 3 o'clock to our staff and at 5 o'clock to our families every day. Several of those are intermixed with video presentations as well, trying to keep our staff as up to date as possible in this changing landscape, because as we all know, it has been very much a changing landscape. But in terms of masks and gloves, we're fairly well staffed. We were able to get some right early on for all of our employees, for our custodians, for our food service workers, for our tech folks who are handing out a lot of those Chromebooks and hotspots and all of those things. So right at this point, we're in a pretty good place. The interesting piece, as we all know across our nation, is they're very difficult to get. For example, we put in an order to get some more hotspots, and the earliest that we will be able to get them is mid-June. So a lot of these needs are being kind of pushed down down the road because of there's just no access. So we are in a pretty good place, at least in Dublin Unified at this particular point.
Thank you, Dr. Marken. Megan, would you like to add anything to that?
No, actually, I think Dr. Marken covered that. Thank you.
Very good. Linda, let's go to questions from the community. Again, we have over 80 people standing online, and many of them have some questions. Thank you, community, for joining us. And if you have questions, please type them in. Ms. Smith?
I'll take myself off mute, and I will start with the first question, which is for elementary schools. Can we get the basic class plans before Sunday so we can prepare our homeschool setup before Monday?
On some level, that's possible. I don't know that we can require that across the board at all of our elementary classes and all of our elementary schools. That many of the teachers actually just got back in the Thursday before we went on spring break. One of the things, technically this is spring break, although it's really been not a lot different from the last 4 or 5 weeks. But one of the things we really encouraged a lot of our staff to do since it is spring break, to try to disconnect a little bit, because it has put obviously a strain on all of our families, all of our kids, and all of our staff, because they're having to do things dramatically different, literally on a dime. I mean, just a complete left turn immediately. And so they've been scrambling. They've gone back into their classrooms on 2 occasions. We've cleaned all of our schools both before and after so that they felt safe going in to get whatever materials and information they needed. So to the best of our ability, we will try to do that. But I can't guarantee across every grade, at every elementary school that will be done before Monday. But let me also say, and actually, Megan, if please jump in at any point, because I don't want to miss something or misspeak. One of the other things that we are really encouraging our teachers and our families to understand, that there is no replacement, absolutely unequivocally no replacement for the teacher being in front of his or her students day in, day out. No replacement. As quote unquote good as distance learning can be, and we run the gamut. I mean, there are teachers who are very adept technologically and are just jump on it. And there are others, probably like myself, who it takes a little time. And so we kind of run that whole gamut. But one of the things that we have told our teachers is a couple things. Number one, to the best of your ability, keep our kids educated. But secondly, show some grace and compassion. This is not as if you've got your student in front of you 6 or 7 hours a day, that you have your student in a secondary every single day for that 55 minutes or so. And so show some grace, show some compassion, because you've got sometimes 2 parents at home, all having to work from home. You might have 2 or 3 computers and 6 people vying for that internet and that computer space. So we're trying to balance all of those equity issues, as well as trying to continue educating as best we can.
If I could jump in, the one thing I would add to that is that I think that our teachers are really focusing on making connections with our students during this time. I know from talking to teachers that they really miss their kids, and their kids miss them. And sometimes when they hop online together for a Zoom call or a Google Hangout, whether it's in kindergarten or 11th grade math, they are not just necessarily talking about education, but making sure to check in. And I think, I know from talking to some of our students that it really brings a smile to their face to see their teachers. And it means so much to the teachers also to be able to connect with the kids. As Dr. Marken said, there is no replacement for that time that they used to be spending together in the classroom. But we're just really happy to see how much they are trying to connect with each other and the difference that is making you know, to make each and every day just a little bit more doable, if you will.
Great. I've got I probably have about 18 questions, so we'll try to get through them as quickly. And some of them, I think, Superintendent Marken, you probably already answered. So this question, I'll just read it and you figure out how do you need to answer it. How will instruction, distance learning, work assignments differ after spring break? And will kids be getting grades for their work turned in? And will teachers be expected to do online instruction? 3 questions.
Yeah, 3 questions. I'll try to answer those as best I can. We are going to bring to the board on April 21st at our board meeting to, we are recommending as an executive cabinet, as a superintendent, to go to the same system that some of our colleagues are going to around us, San Ramon, Livermore, Castro Valley, and that is a credit, no credit. Our colleges are moving that way. They are essentially saying that this semester is so difficult to manage for a lot of reasons, an equity issue being one of them, as I described, of the family that might have 2 or 3 computers and 6 people vying for internet and that time. We are going to bring to the board for April 22nd to go to a credit, no credit, which means that the students should do their work, need to do their work. But at the end of the day, it is really important that we consider utilizing grace and compassion for our staff and for our kids. They should not be penalized. It is my belief, and I believe the board believes this as well. They cannot nor should be penalized for something that is beyond their scope and their control, and quite frankly, in some ways beyond our control. But so we will not be issuing grades. The colleges, and you know, we've seen from Ivy League colleges to the UC CSUs, they're accepting credit, no credit. And so that's kind of where we're headed. And I hope that the board will make that decision quickly and on April 21st. The other part was what?
How are the work assignments going to be different after spring break?
Well, thank you. After spring break, what we're asking teachers to do is to kind of move forward with some continued instruction. Now, when I say that, let me say that it is very different than having your student at an elementary grade in your class for 4 or 5 hours each day. And the thing that we don't want, and we've really cautioned our teachers to doing, is making expectations that a student be in front of their computer for 4, 5, 6, or 7 hours a day. We don't think that's healthy. We don't think that's right. So we're asking them to give them some additional new instruction that will help them to continue to move forward.
Next question. For lunch pickup, do my kids need to show themselves, or can they stay back at a safe distance? Can they stay in the car with another adult to avoid exposure?
Well, it's difficult because where we have the setup at Dublin High, for example, it's actually, it's nowhere near where the cars are. So someone actually does have to go up to some of the windows. But, you know, I mean, gloves are worn. After every single breakfast lunch combination is picked up, they wipe down the entire surface again. And there's times when, you know, we have a window of opportunity, and we're giving out, as Mayor Haubert said, anyone that walks up to that window gets a breakfast and a lunch every day. Now, we've taken this week off. It'll start again on Monday, but whoever walks up to that window gets one. It's not quite like the restaurant where you can kind of grab and go. So you do have to show up, but they're using every precaution possible. And you know, the other thing that I find interesting, because I've been there many days and helped hand out lunches and computers and all sorts of things. And our employees love our kids, and our kids love our employees. And one of the things is they say hello and they want to say hi, and they want to give them a hug. And we have to say, wait a second, you can't do that, because the relationships that have been built, and quite frankly, that's one of the big differences. A school district is built on relationships with their teachers, with their staff, with their custodians, with anyone on a site, and anyone in the district. And we promote that and believe that's a very, very important piece on relationships. So we have to kind of tell people, remember, stay back. We can wave, say hi, and at some point we'll be able to high five or maybe give them a hug.
Okay. Next question. This person would like to know information about the math assessment test for incoming sixth graders.
Yeah, some of these things we are, and I did see another question. I'll probably jump on this one. And by the way, whatever questions we don't get to, because I know we do have a time constraint, we would be happy to put them on our website and on our social media. You know, we're working on the math assessment piece for sixth graders now. I know there was a question about promotions and proms and graduations and all of those pieces. Clearly at this point, as long as the shelter in place stays in place, those will not be taking place in person. Now we're working with, for example, the principal of Valley and principal of Dublin High, Ms. Byrne, to take a look at what we can do virtually. But you're right, as things remain, and I don't see that changing. We're sitting here virtually in the middle of April, and our open houses and promotions and graduations are the third week and fourth week of May. Unless something unbelievable happens, which I don't think it will, I think it will be very gradual. We will not be having those events. So we're going to have to figure out how to do it. One of the things we're exploring this virtually every day. We're having these discussions. One of the things that is interesting, and Ms. Byrne and several of us have talked about, well, what if we did something in the summer? And we're kind of getting a prevailing opinion, and it's just an opinion that, you know, once we get past the end of May, the students want to move on. They're preparing for college. And so we've kind of done some informal, very informal surveys of, well, would you come back for a graduation in August? And, you know, quite frankly, we're not finding a lot of takers. I mean, I think, you know, there's a time and a season for these things. There's a time and a season for prom, a time and a season to walk across that stage. And once you have earned your diploma, again, none of that is in cement. But we're looking at all of those things being done at some form virtually.
Great. The next question is there a plan for summer school yet?
Good question. We are actually in discussions, and I actually did see another chat on the side with respect to DPI summer school. Dublin runs a summer school program. And again, Megan, please feel free to jump in. And also DPI runs a summer program as well. And part of my hours of conversations yesterday morning was actually, a big part of that was with DPI. And so what we're working on is, what will that look like? And I have to say, just as Chief Holmes and Mayor Haubert and yourself and city staff are like, well, as this changes, we're going to have to make an adjustment. Just as we had to make more and more adjustments with respect to restrictions, we're going to have to make adjustments as things loosen. And one of those will be summer school. So we've just been in discussions. Are we going to have a virtual summer school? Are we going to have an online summer school, much like we're doing here? And we've had that discussion. DPI is working on that from their perspective, and we're working on that from Dublin Unified's perspective. Now, if in the next few weeks something changes, but here's the thing: in order to go virtual or to go in person, you can't turn on a dime. You can't find out on June 5th that, oh, June 6th, you should have summer school. You have to make that decision several weeks in advance and plan accordingly. So that is, quite frankly, the dilemma we're in. And certainly by the end of April, we will have to probably make those decisions. But we've decided that the Dublin Unified Summer School and DPI Summer School are going to do the same thing, whatever, I will say, that same thing is.
Great. So the next two questions I'm going to combine because they're related to technology. What's the status of Chromebooks and hotspots and their availability? And Chromebooks. Currently, the Go Guardian Control apps conflict and allow child unlimited use of YouTube and web access. Is there any way to change the Guardian settings at home? Or should
Well,
they contact your technology staff?
Yeah. And since he's not on this call, I would have to get to him and get back. I said earlier on in my comments, we've distributed at this point 650 new Chromebooks. Now keep in mind, through the help of DPI and a lot of our great partners and the district making a concerted financial effort with respect to technology. We have a lot of technology in Dublin Unified, and we are super thankful for the community, for their support over the many, many years. Back when I was here for my first 13 years. We have so appreciated that. So we have a lot of technology, but we have just in these last 3 weeks distributed an additional 650 Chromebooks. So it's important to keep in mind that our tech department has been working with additional help tirelessly because we've had to refurbish all of our Chromebooks that were not suitable to take the state testing, and refurbish them, re-image them, get them up, cleaned, sanitized, and distributed. We have 650. We have 250 orders that will be going out the beginning of next week. So that's pushing 900. We are going to continue to give them out as long as people have them. In terms of hotspots, as I said, we've distributed 50. Part of the issue is that's the only hotspots we've had. And when we've gone to different vendors, the earliest they're saying we can get them is mid-June.
Okay, so we are, I'm going to batch up a couple of questions because I'm looking at the scanning of the questions and the time frame we have left. And there seems to be some questions about what does the next school year look like? So is distant learning and technologies going to be considered for the next school year if needed? And will the next academic year start as scheduled? Those are 2 questions that I think are related to what happens next school year.
Yeah, thanks for that. You know, in my office, actually, I do have, believe it or not, I have a crystal ball. And if I could look into that crystal ball, but it doesn't tell me anything. Mm-hmm. Here's what I believe. I believe that when we get to mid-August, we will be back in school and our teachers will be in front of our students. Now, having said that, I have nothing to base that on other than what I think I'm starting to see about a little bit of the flattening of the curve. I think that they're going to start loosening up some of the restrictions. And I believe with all my heart, the best place for our students is in their schools with their teachers, learning at the high level that our teachers bring to our kids and to our families every day. Again, having said that, we're going to, we're kind of chunking this, if you will, every 4 to 5 weeks, because that's about the best we can do to then look out for the following month. I think some of those restrictions will open up. I hope we'll be back in school, but are we prepared to have a virtual beginning of a school year? Yes, we are, because we had to make this happen in literally 48 hours. So we will be even better prepared, but we hope and believe that we will be back in school in sessions when school resumes.
We did get another, okay, I'm just making sure I was live. Okay, so we did get a question that might pertain to the balance of this school year. Will students have a chance to return to their classrooms at some point and collect any personal belongings or contents of their desks, which they may have left? Or will these items be sent to people's homes?
Yeah, that's a great question for this reason, because we have a shelter in place and we can't have any groups of families and people all together. So we've kicked around a lot of ideas on how to do this. For example, at an elementary school, maybe we'd obviously have to redo and clean the school, and maybe having kindergartners and their families between 8 and 9, and then first graders 9 and 1. I mean, we're going to have to do it something like that, and maybe even take a grade and kind of bifurcate it A through L and M through Z, because what we don't want is 250 people showing up all at the same time, all at their school. And we do know that students have some materials and coats and jackets and books and backpacks and all sorts of things at their school. We're trying to figure out how to do that. And the last thing I want is Chief Holmes to come and arrest me because I've let 250, 300 families into a school. So we want to make sure that we do that safely and efficiently to keep everyone safe.
Okay. So I did get a question related to whether or not students will be afforded an opportunity to catch up if they are falling behind. Is there any plans for ways that students can catch up if they are falling behind?
Well, that's a very subjective question because falling behind, I would say the entire nation is falling behind for this semester. And I think that's why a lot of the districts around us and a lot of the states around us are just issuing a credit, no credit. Essentially, so it's interesting to say falling behind. If the entire state is falling behind, are we falling behind or are we staying where everyone else is? Kind of depends on your perspective on this, but in terms of catching up, I will say this, that moving forward, that's going to be a dilemma for every school district. So for example, a second grader to be reading at a second grade level, will they be a little behind? Possibly, but I will say this, most of the state testing, most of the ACT testing and SAT and all of those things have already taken place by now. So if there's any sort of a silver lining in this, it's certainly better the fourth quarter than it is the first or second quarter or even third quarter. So in terms of falling behind, I think we're all at the same place. And quite frankly, not only in all of the Tri-Valley, but in Alameda County and the state of California, and for most of the states, the entire nation.
Great. So we are getting some questions, Superintendent, on the construction that's going on at your various school locations. So it's two parts. What's happening with current construction? And will this shelter-in-place order and what's happening now delay the start of construction of the new high school?
Yeah, I would say we hope not. The board, and again, Megan, please feel free to jump in. The board decided to look at our projects as essential, and just as we've had to make those decisions, the city has made those decisions in who are essential workers. We believe that the projects currently under construction and coming up are essential functions. And of course, some of the board concern were with respect to the health of the construction workers and those folks. Well, we have several safeguards in place. Number one, the company has guidelines with which they have to operate by. Also, the district has project managers for every one of the projects that are on site. Some of them are in the trailer, for example, the Science and Engineering building at Dublin High. There's a trailer right on the site, actually right inside the fence, that will have both the project manager and the construction workers. So we hope that it will not be curtailed or will not be stopped, because here's the reality. If something is delayed 1 or 2 months, it really is delayed for a year, because you're not going to open a brand new school in January. You just don't do that. You can't do that. So if you aren't able to open at the beginning of a school year, sometimes a month or 2 or 3 delay really creates an entire year delay. And so we want to be very, very cognizant of that, very aware of that. We'd like to keep our projects going. But, you know, quite frankly, this COVID-19, a lot of that will depend on where this goes. Is the curve really being flattened, or are we going to have another horrific spike? And again, I keep looking into that crystal ball in my office, and I'm just getting crickets. I'm not getting any answers from my crystal ball. But really, we'd like all of those projects to go, because quite frankly, we're several years behind. And we can say all the reasons why, but we're several years behind. We currently have 72 portable classrooms that are costing the district $2 million a year plus in rent. And to put a portable in is usually around $150,000 to $250,000. And then you get to pay rent on top of it. So it's not ideal. They are classrooms and they work, but the footprint of our schools are not built to have 10, 15, 20 portables on them in terms of library, restroom space, all of the accoutrements, feeding our kids, places for them to sit. They're not built for that. So clearly we'd like to keep all of those projects going. And, you know, projects are difficult. I mean, anyone who's done a house remodel knows that many times they say, I'll never do this again because it's dusty, it's dirty, it's inconvenience, it's troublesome. But when it's done, you have a great addition or you have a great new kitchen, and we will have some new facilities for our students that really, really do need them.
Okay.
If I could jump in just for 1 second and add also, with respect to the board deeming the projects to be essential, this was a very serious decision and a serious action, and we took this very seriously. And by passing this resolution, we have provided an opportunity for the projects to not be delayed. Had we not passed the resolution, all of these projects most certainly would have been delayed. And so, as Dr. Marken said, we don't know what will happen this summer. There could be additional orders that come down from the state that halt construction. But at this time, by deeming these projects essential and requiring our construction companies to take appropriate precautions and keep their workers safe, we have provided that opportunity to move forward on each and every project for each and every student in our district, so that we can deliver these facility needs as quickly as possible.
Okay, I'm trying to do the best I can because questions are still coming in, but there's a couple questions maybe you could just ask, like, how long is the day going to be for the students? How long online will students at different grade levels be? I've gotten questions relative to sort of elementary grades and high school grades. How long are they going to be required to sit in front of a computer and work when school is back in session come Monday?
Right. Yeah. Thanks for that. Here's what we are suggesting: no more than 1 or 2 hours a day for our elementaries, and maybe 2 to 3 maximum for our secondary students. And the reason for that is multiple. Number one, it's not in our students' best interest to sit in front of a computer screen all day long and do work. Number two, equity becomes a real issue because some parents are there at the ready because they've got maybe 1 child or 2 children, and they can help them with all of their work. And then you see the equity issue of a parent who sent me a letter. Both parents are working home remotely. They have 4 students, a Dublin High students, a Wells students, and 2 elementary students, and they have 3 computers in their family. And they have to work 6 to 8 hours remotely. So the ability for them to even get their kids set up is a very, very difficult situation. We're asking to have them not in front of their computers. We're asking them, yes, do we want our students to do, and you know, here's the bottom line. Kids will say, well, if it's not going to get a grade, I'm not going to do it. Well, my position, and I made this statement to the families and the kids, I said, I think it's in your best interest to do it. Because if you choose not to do it, there is a chance that you could get a no credit if you do nothing. And that's the last thing you would want. I said, secondly, I said, if you're going to be going on to college or going into next year, it behooves you to do the work that you're being asked to do. And so that's kind of our position. We're trying to show compassion. We're trying to show grace, and yet trying to keep learning going. And that's a delicate balance, because some people will say, you're giving us too much, and others are saying, you're not giving my kids enough. And we're doing, as the governor said, to the best of our ability. And that's kind of what the mandate says. So I know we are running late, Linda. So if you want more questions, I can stay here all afternoon. I have nowhere to go.
Could I add one thing just to follow up on that question in terms of the time limit? Something that I've seen already from some of the teachers, and you know, I think as a district we've suggested, but certainly not directed, that some of that time will actually be flexible in terms of when they are expected to sit and watch the lessons. Some of it will be live time with teachers, and some of it may be videos or recordings that can be managed, you know, for the different family schedules or the different student schedules. So when you say 1 to 2 hours or 2 to 3 hours, it doesn't necessarily mean between the hours of 9 and 11. It may mean 1 to 2 hours at the time that fits into your family's schedule during the course of the day, where some of that may be a specific time, but some of that will have some flexibility built in.
Yeah, thanks, Megan. And the other thing is, it was interesting. As I said, we've done these information every single day, and also I've done a couple videos. And one of the videos to the families, I said, oh, and by the way, I said, I would love to see your artwork, so send me your artwork. Well, little did I know that we've received hundreds and hundreds of art projects and pieces and paintings and sculptures and ceramics and everything they posted. And so our communication department is putting them on all of our social media. So they're doing a lot of things. I just saw yesterday a cello concert from an elementary student at, I believe, Dublin L. So we're getting all of these that are kind of keeping our families together and continuing to learn.
Okay, next question. It should be a quick answer. If classes are pass or fail, does this affect the cumulative GPA?
It does not. What they will do is essential. I don't know how else to say it other than I have to break things down pretty simply. They're kind of giving the school districts a flyer for this semester, if you will. So it will not affect the GPA, and colleges are going to accept it as, quite frankly, as if they'll accept a credit and they will ding a student if they get a no credit, but it will not affect their look at the student coming into whatever college they're interested in.
Okay. This one is more putting on your futuristic hat. Do you foresee a requirement where students will have to wear facial masks once school returns in the fall or when it begins again? Do you support this, or what would that look like?
Well, if that is a requirement, then that is what we will do. It's interesting because, you know, when this pandemic started, all we kept hearing was that masks are useless. They're not going to help. You don't need to wear them. No one should be wearing them. And now everybody should have them and everybody should wear them. So quite frankly, that dynamic changed in a matter of just a couple weeks. I think if that is the prerequisite to get back in class, absolutely we will and we should. If the curve has flattened and they say that's not a requirement, then we would consider that and it would be optional. But if they say in order to have school, you should have a mask, we'll be wearing our masks.
So this one is more related to how people can be helpful. So what can parents do to help out the teachers and the staff community, and our staff appreciation forms still accepted?
Yeah, they are. I mean, we're trying to do, for example, I know Megan Rouse is very involved in Rotary, and we're trying to figure out how virtually to do a Rotary Teachers of the Year. I think that, yes, they absolutely can continue to send that information. I think that the families and the parents have been unbelievably gracious in understanding that this has been tough on everyone. There's been very few, as Chief Holmes said, about very few issues from his perspective of overly demanding and requiring things of teachers, that they're sensitive to the fact that many of our teachers have children at home that they have to deal with and work with, as well as trying to educate. So I think to continue that understanding as we are asking our teachers to understand, and if you know, we have almost 700 teachers. And so on that continuum, if a teacher is, nope, they're going to get 6 hours of homework, and we receive that concern, we will ask the principal to have a conversation with that teacher to say, these are some of your students' issues. And so we kind of address those as they come up at each grade, at each school, constantly.
Great. Okay, these are bigger picture questions, okay? Someone would like to hear your thoughts on the necessity to close schools, since that isn't what, while in line with the Superintendent of Education's guidance, it was guidance. The decision that you made and other school districts made to close schools was the role of the school districts to make. What do you think will happen when school return? Well, since many of the students are now going to continue on with extracurricular activities, even though school may not be in session, I don't know if they are or they not, I don't think that's probably going to be the case, pending the guidance of public health, but do you see that in any way negating the effect of keeping kids out of the classroom? If there are programs that begin to start up again when the school year has been concluded in person, but kids are learning online, it's not a clean question, but do you see any impact of kids getting back to their extracurricular activities while during this period at a time? Other than, I would say they would just need to follow whatever the public health order is during that time, but there isn't anything, I think, more to add to that, Dr. Marken. I just wanted to make sure I put that question out. They want to hear your thoughts on that.
Yeah, thanks, Linda. Well, the shelter in place, there are no organized activities or sports or groups of any fashion growing. Even when we conducted our first virtual board meeting, we had our staff do some presentations, and we had 2 people in a very large room and only 2 people at any one time. We had the person at the podium and the person standing in the far back. Now, the only interesting caveat to that is that, and I spoke to that earlier on in the call, and that was with respect to childcare. If, for example, some of the restrictions are lifted for parents to go back to work, then EDCC, for example, our childcare will need to go back to work, and they are still continuing to pay their employees. And I just spoke with the leaders yesterday, and actually yesterday and the day before. So they would need to start in order for the parents to go back to work. But let me be perfectly clear, and the board and all of our administration at the school district, the best place for our kids to be is in school with their teachers learning. Now, we made that decision for the greater good. And I think that really, and again, at the end of the day, are all of these decisions absolutely the flattening of the curve? It'll depend on who you talk to. But the issue is COVID-19 needs to be flattened, and it needs to be flattened sooner rather than later. And then we can get our kids back and our parents back at work and our economy booming and people going on with their lives. But that's an important piece to make sure our staff and our students are safe and not transmitting this potential virus. And I think we've done that, and I think it was the right decision.
So the next group of questions I'm going to kind of chunk together relate to childcare, and I appreciate the superintendent's comments about EDCC, obviously working with it within any rules or construct that public health puts out. If they're allowing, if they want to continue to maintain social distancing or limit the number of persons, those will all have to be considerations. These questions are directed both to the city and to the district. One was, will the EDC operate during the summer? I think you've answered that question. Other questions about general childcare providers in the city of Dublin, that they would love to operate safely and support the kids and the families. Having these individual childcare providers should know that there are certain restrictions that are currently placed on the shelter-in-place order that limit that to those that are only providing childcare can be provided to essential workers or healthcare workers at this point in time. A lot of those healthcare or childcare facilities are lacking the essential supplies that they may need in order to operate, and are wondering if there is any assistance available to them. And I would say those sorts of questions, if those are issues, need to be directed to the City of Dublin. And if you call 925-833-6650, we will put you in touch with our logistics team to figure out how those supplies can be provided under the assumption that you are providing those services for essential workers and healthcare workers, which is what the order says. Okay, the second part of that was, will there be childcare services provided as a city, from the city, as schools are closed for the remainder of the school year? The answer to that question currently is no. We have not been asked yet to provide childcare facilities for our healthcare workers. I understand that the city of Pleasanton is standing up one of their facilities in order to do that, and working with Pleasanton Unified on that. But in the city of Dublin, no. Now, after the shelter-in-place order is removed on May 3rd, depending on what the order says, If there's a new order or if other requirements are put into place, we will try to get back to our operations under the confines of that order or guidance. We are looking at our summer programming. As I said, we're not prepared as is the district either, is not prepared to just stand up something in a day. So we know that in order for us to stand up any sort of childcare, and I'll put it in the idea of a summer camp, for example, where children can participate in activities, we can break those into small groups. That's certainly within something we can do. We can provide that opportunity for parents who need to go back to work to do so. But we also have to take into consideration what are the rules at place at that time. And our objective is to make sure we can adapt to that and provide those services. And what you might see from the city over the summer would be limiting our programs to simply doing just that, providing respite for parents and opportunities for kids to engage and interact with nature or other activities that are important to them. But it would be limited, and I'm sure we would have it in small groups and within the construct of any order that would be in place at that time. Let me see if I missed any of those.
Yeah, the only thing I would add to that, Linda, is we actually have a WebEx meeting with EDCC. We've been on constant conversations with them about what summer may look like. Again, we will probably know in the next 2 or 3 weeks if any of those restrictions will be loosened at all. And then we're planning accordingly with what they need. We're going to meet with our custodians and maintenance and all of those people, because they will need some places if a summer program is going to be in place on all of our schools.
Great. Then what will the public library do? What will the libraries at the school do? Will they be open and accessible for kids to come in and borrow books after the shelter in place is lifted with, social distancing and masks? I can speak to the City of Dublin. The City of Dublin doesn't operate the library. We provide the space for the Alameda County Public Library System. We have not had any conversations yet with the library as it relates to reopening at the conclusion of the shelter in place order. That is something on our list of things to do. It just didn't rise to the top of the list for us to take care of. I don't know if the district wants to comment on that.
Yeah, we're in exactly the same place. We have not had those discussions. We've kind of had our hands filled with a lot of other things, but obviously as we get closer to summer and we find out exactly what we think summer may look like, we will absolutely make those decisions as well.
We did have a follow-up question to clarity on pass or fail. Is it what grade is pass? Would it be considered a C or higher, D or higher to pass a class?
Pass a class is D or higher.
Okay. Making sure I'm looking through all of my questions. I think we got to most of them. John Stefanski, did I miss any that you think I need to address?
No, I think you got to all of them. And then I can also share with the superintendent a report of all the questions too, just to double check.
I know I had a follow-on question from one of the attendees in the meeting. I asked them to send me the question so I can send it to you directly, Dr. Marken. It was related to the logistics for that pickup of those meals. So it was a follow-on question, but I thought it would be dealt with offline probably better.
Great.
Okay.
Ms. Smith, thank you very much. It feels like this concludes the second of 3 community conversations. Dr. Marken, Vice President Rouse, thank you so much for being here and for answering so many questions. Thank you to the community for attending the meeting, for asking your questions. I think this was time well spent. This meeting has been recorded and can be referred to in the future, and I hope perhaps we can do another in a short while as needed. So we are doing a great job with technology. I'd like to thank our staff for putting this together as well. Stay tuned. At 1 o'clock, we have our next community conversation, this dealing with our business community. Hazel Weatherford, Executive Director for Economic Development, or Director for Economic Development, and CEO of the Dublin Chamber of Commerce, Inga Houston. And for any updates, please don't forget to visit www.dublin.ca.gov, and especially the special link on our website related to COVID-19. With that, again, thank you everyone for attending. Great job. Let's stay home, stay safe, and save lives, and let's stay Dublin strong. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.